Thank you.
My name's Steve Strong, and the rocks we've got here are part of a collection that's been gathered over the last about 4 or 5 years. It started as this rock, this first rock here, which was found at a place called Carryong, and this rock was dug up underneath the ground and it was found 1 metre beneath the surface. Now, a lady called Roz brought this rock to us when I was working with Michael Tellinger and showed it to us for the first time. And what we found when we looked at this rock was the markings on it just didn't make sense. They couldn't be done. The rock is over 10,000 years old. It is not sandstone, it's in sandstone country, so the rock is not dark and young, it's come from somewhere else. And what we saw straight away was, I didn't see anything bar what was on the surface to begin with. It's how we've done this. We saw marks on here that couldn't be made. There's an imprint on the top here, around here, and I'll show you some pictures later, where that's been pressed down 1/2 centimetre. Yet the cuts here are only 1 mil. Now the question is, how could they push this down so far and not break the surface? According to an expert that told me this, he said all you need is 3,700 degrees to push it down. I thought to myself, there's no campfire on the planet that can do that. So we started with this rock as a beginning, and this rock was found by this lady, and then she became obsessed, and every rock on this table bar one she bought. Okay, so what we've got here now is a combination of rocks that were bought by about 3 buyers and 1 seller, and people who found the rocks, and they've been sending it to us. And now we have about 150 of these rocks of this level, and then others. But there's one thing that's missing. The rocks at the moment stay at my place and they're hidden, and that's not where the rocks have got to go. They have to go somewhere that respects the rocks and deserves their presence. And we've decided as a group, and that includes the buyers, and there's no discussion involved in this one, that they'll be stored on this island. So the reasons the rocks are here today is to begin that process. And some of these rocks, when I leave, will be staying here. Some we've got to make up copies of so that we can show people what they look like, but the originals will stay here. And it's our intention that this rock, and there's 2 others, must stay at this place until their job is complete. So there are certain rocks that have jobs to do in the future, and some that have completed their story. So it's a combination of these different sorts of rocks.
Why is it important that they come here?
Why? I'll tell you why, because there's only 1 elder, and I've been around Australia a fair bit now. I know the airports pretty well. There's only been 1 elder that I believe has the ability and knowledge to identify these rocks correctly, and that's Carno Walker. And that's my opinion, and it's not going to change. I've seen enough to know this. And the reason why these rocks stay here is because this rock, which the Smithsonian know about, and they claim it's unique, there's nothing like this on the planet, he knows the story that goes with this rock. And more importantly, I have no doubt what he told me is correct. Therefore, this is the rock that begins the story, and it leads the story. It'd be like taking a book and taking out the conclusion and giving you the book and saying reading it. It makes no sense without the conclusion. And for me, this is the conclusion. This one here could be the introduction, and this one over here could be the middle. But these rocks together make a story that is as old as humanity is. Now with this particular rock, and I think I've got the story right now, and if I don't, I'm sure if Christine's around somewhere she'll tell me. If not, she'll know. Oh yes, she will, don't worry. This rock, Carno knew about this rock for quite some time, and he didn't say a thing to me. And then one day he told me the story that goes with it. It tends to be how it works with Carno. He tells you what you need to know, what you think to know. And he told me very simply, this is a story about the Gowana, coming from a distance, coming from another place. I'm guessing it's Pleiades, I'm sure it is. And when they came here, they weren't welcome. And what actually took place was the eagle and the crow fought against the Gowana and stopped the Gowana from coming, because they decided they didn't need to come to this place. But the crow saw the wisdom in them coming and changed sides, and eventually what took place was that the crow and the Gowana won, and the Gowana was given the claws to scratch the laws in. Now Kano said something very important to me on the phone. I've never forgotten it. And he said, then the whitefellas took our story and turned it into the 10 Commandments. This is the beginning. If this is the story they wrote down and this is their wisdom, and by the way, I want to show you something. See these marks on here? And some people are going to say, these are just marks. They're not just marks, because we've compared this to 3 other rocks found, one in Bosnia, one in Germany and one in Calgary. And on those rocks are 47 marks and angles. And on this rock, I can find 45 of them. Now that's impossible. 2 of the rocks are identical. The one in Bosnia is 15 and 15, the one in Germany is 11 and 11. Where we've got measurements like 13.62 on this one, and I'll have exactly the same measurement. This is the first language. It was done in angles and lines and alignments. And by the way, Ogham script, which is the first language we had, is just tally marks. This is where language starts. And this particular rock, what's really important with this rock is, it contains 2.5 languages. It's got the language of these straight lines and intersections, which you can see there. It's got the language of the imprints, and it also has the language of the thumb, because it's held like this. The rocks are all held in certain ways. Now that's 2.5. This rock, which is found in Githable country, and of course all the Githables said then it must belong to us. This is not volcanic, boys and girls. It doesn't come from Githable land the same way this didn't come from Darkingyong land. It didn't come there. It came from somewhere down here, and it was placed in places. Now this one has 4.5 languages. First of all, it's got the index finger like that, female rock. Well, there's your thumb, there's your finger, there's your sign language there. It's also got the letter A, because the original people had a language of 16 letters. Now A means something like the light of the soul with God coming in. The letters are different to what we've got. It's also got the pecking language running across there. It's also got these lines that run across like computer readouts. And then it's got the very fine hair lines on a lot of these. Now that's 4.5 languages. This one only has 2.5. This is from the earth, this is from space. Which is more important? This one. It's got more. It's got more information. I try and tell people the Pleiadians came here not because they were gods, because they wanted something from the original people that they don't have. So these 2 rocks together are the story of the 7 languages of the male and the female and the beginning of humanity. So they stay here. And it leads with this one. So they're very important, those ones. This one here is an amazing rock because half of it is just like it is and the other half's been cut. And you can see how they've cut it. Now the question I've got again with this rock is find a piece of technology today that can cut this rock like that. And I swear to you, you won't get it at Bunnings. You're going to have to get something decent here. So this goes way back. And on this rock there are nearly 500 marks on this side. And there's a triangle that cuts right through the centre of it there. My understanding is this is a story about the seeding of this planet. And that puncture point is Uluru. And what landed there was Uluru, and in that was seeded the beginning of life. And the story of life here is the oldest one on this planet. And the reason, which is really important, because at one stage when I was looking at these rocks, I had an elder with me by the name of Uncle Marbach. And I asked him, and we're talking about these rocks, I said, I don't get it. Why come? If you look at our history, it's a disaster. It's the last 7,000 years have been what? Basically war. And people killing each other. And they said, well, what have we got that they want? And he said, you've forgotten one thing. We have one thing on this planet that no one in the cosmos has. And he told me, he said, I want you to think about the very first depictional account of an alien that was nice to humans. And the guy that actually did this story has told anyone that wants to listen that he was channeled. His name's Gene Roddenberry, and the story is Star Trek. And we're talking about Dr. Spock. Well, he claims, he says, I want you to think of all the aliens as variations on that. And what was Dr. Spock's big problem with humans? Our emotions. He couldn't work them out. And what was the one that threw in the most? Love. Could not work it out. He told me that's why they come here. Because that's what we have in abundance, and that's what powers the universe more than anything else. And that's why the Pleiadians set this story up so long ago, because they didn't want to become masters. They wanted to incarnate into something. So the Pleiadians came here to incarnate into original genes, which is what they've done. But remember one thing. They brought something here they shouldn't have brought. And this is what it is. You see this one here, it's a silicon. It's actually a power rock. It's also made of petrified wood. Now how do you cut petrified wood? Like this. You need technology. And the original people embraced it before anyone else. They took the technology. They said, this is fantastic, this is great, let's use it. And they used it, and they worked out something else after a while. Pleiadians might have brought good genes, but they had bad advice, and so did the Syrians. This place doesn't work on technology. It's a high spiritual octane planet that works on low-level technology. And that's why we've had civilizations that fall on their backside. And the original people worked out way back, we don't want any of it. And then the rest of us didn't. And that's what this is all about now. This is about how things used to be. This one here, I'm told, which is quite an unusual rock here, it was actually marked all the way around. It's also held, and it's held like this, and because the fingers are rubbed over the top, it's all gone now, this part here. But you can see ridging down the bottom where it was there. I'm told this is part of that technology. This is part of that older technology because it's a different format to the others. And this one's supposed to represent Atlantean or Pleiadian. I don't really care, but I do know that it's different to the others. And once again, from my point of view, it's the technology involved in making this. You can't. You virtually, what the scientists have told me is what they could never work out with these rocks is how did they get such an even spread? Well, fortunately, a gentleman over there gave me the clue to that. This is actually a resin. And they've melted the chert into the resin and then just placed it on top like this. And then it's just like a potter cutting the lines. It's really that simple once you know how to do it. Of course, once someone gives you a clue, it makes it a lot easier, doesn't it? So, what we've got here is we've got these mark rocks. This one's quite interesting because it's had this beautiful seahorse that's put on the top there, which shows you there are so many levels to what they put on this. It's not just these marks like this, and it's not just marks like this. This is a language that has no boundaries. It has everything on it. And this particular one reminds me of this one here.